Well, hello everyone and welcome back. If you did not attend the very first live session, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Devonna Payne. You can call me Professor Payne, D, whichever. And I would like to touch bases on week 1 and week 2. So just a small recap from our very first live session. We just went over the course overview, and we also went over some of the grading scales in regards to assignments, how we grade. Also, you should have seen a notification for our recap video from the first live session. So if you weren't able to attend, you can go and check that video out. There are 3 questions that I asked during that live session. So just send me a message in Canvas, just answering those 3 questions, and I'll give you credit for attending. Also, for this live session, I wanted to go in depth on the first week, as well as do an overview for week 2. Since we don't have a live session for week 2, I just wanted to make sure that I'm giving you some information that you can remember and take with you moving into week 2, because when we come back for week 3, we'll jump into Photoshop. So let's dive into that. So welcome back. Today's agenda, we're going to do an introduction again. We're going to do a course recap, week 1 overview, week 2 overview, and then some reminders at the end. And for our live session, I just want to let everyone know that it is being recorded and it's going to be saved underneath the web meetings. For the very first video, we had some issues, but I was able to post the recap and the announcements. So this video should automatically post to the web meetings. I will also send another announcement letting you know where you can find this live session. Also, keep your video on, but your mic's on mute, and you can raise your hand to engage, and also chat, connect with everyone in the chat box, and also you can ask questions that I'll address at the end. So a little introduction about myself. My name is Devonna Payne. I have a master's degree in digital marketing. Also, I am certified in Adobe and Google. I have 10 years of experience in graphic and website design, as well as social media management and video editing. I previously worked for Howard University, the College of the Holy Cross, Meharry Medical College, and the National Science Foundation. So I know we have a person, 2 people in our class, hello, that we did not see in our live session, which is okay. I just want to go around the room and have everyone reintroduce ourselves or introduce ourselves, but I will go first. My name is Devonna Payne. You can call me D if you prefer. I'm from Houston, Texas, but I currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia. My occupation, I'm a senior designer for the National Science Foundation. My favorite Adobe application is Adobe XD. And my least favorite, I mentioned before, which is Adobe Muse. It was a application where you can create websites without coding, but they no longer push Adobe Muse anymore. So that's why I consider it my least favorite. So I'll just have everyone go around and introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself so we can get to know each other. Who wants to go first? And I see a lot of you guys like Illustrator, and I just want to let you know Photoshop is just like Illustrator. I'm so glad to be your instructor for the next 8 weeks, because I'm going to help you transition from application to application, and you're going to see some of the tools are the same. So don't worry about that. We'll take on all of those week by week. And again, if you missed the first live session, I broke down each weekly objective. So you can go back and refer to that, or you can check out the Canvas and you'll see everything listed in the modules. So I'm just gonna go over the course project. So you will choose an event. something that you are passionate about or something that you think is important. So from a music event, music festival, a summer cruise, holiday party, or a car sale. These are just some examples, but you're going to create multiple items or marketing materials for that event. And that's going to be throughout this 8 weeks. So the goal is to market an entire event from start to finish, and you're going to basically sell it to us. Towards the end of the course, around week 7, is when you're going to create a proposal. You'll also create a portfolio, and you're going to basically do a pitch to each other in class. So diving into week 1 overview, we're going to talk about the elements of design. So the objectives: identify digital design file types and their uses, develop a figure ground study using dots and white space, explain the uses of RGB and CMYK, and you're going to also recognize the methods for color balance and adjustments and composition. So in this session, we're just going to briefly touch on the different file types, and also we're going to look at one of the activities that you have to complete for your yellow dick discussion. So here's just an icebreaker. I would love for you to send me directly in the chat if you know any of the 9 common file formats. So you don't have to send all 9, but if you know a few different file formats, then definitely send them over. I just want to get an idea of where you are, and I'm going to write them down in my notes, and we'll learn about it right after this. Okay, so I am going to just view the chat, and so everyone said PNGs, JPEGs, PDFs, yes. Tiff, yes. IA, okay. I'm sorry, AI. And did I miss anything else? Okay, so everybody basically knows the common file types. So I'm going to do a breakdown of the different file types with raster file formats versus vector. So raster files are made of a lot of different of small squares, which are considered pixels. When you zoom in on a raster image, you can see those individual pixels. For vector files, they are different because they are made of different shapes, considered points, lines, and curves. This makes them smooth, so they do not lose quality when you zoom in and out. And when you're creating a logo, you definitely want to create a logo that is of a vector file format, because when you zoom in and out, you don't want to lose your quality. And also when you are printing, you don't want to lose your quality as well. So here's an example of raster versus vector. So as you see here with the raster image, when you zoom in, it loses quality. And when you're making the design itself, it may look great to you. But again, once you export the file and you are trying to move the file over from print to web, anything, any different format in which you originally created the file, it will lose quality. Versus Vector, once you create the file, it keeps everything as far as its layers, the shapes, and it will continue to look smooth and have the same high quality versus raster. So the 9 different design file types: JPEG, GIF, PNG, TIFF, PSD. This is all raster file formats. And then you have your vector, which is the AI, the INDD, ESP, and SVG. So I know it seems like a lot, and I'm going to break them down. We're going to talk about a lot of different definitions, but I'm going to bring it all together in the end with a video. So we're going to start with the raster file formats, JPEG. So with JPEG, we all know that it does lose some of the data each time it is saved. So every time you export a JPEG and you import it back in, it's going to lose its quality. And eventually, say for instance, you are working with the same JPEG over and over, and now you need to go to print using that JPEG. Once you print, and depending on the size, it will lose its quality and it's going to show. Now, JPEG files are smaller versus others, and it does compress the image, and it does do well when you are using it over the internet. So just to quickly throw an image online, JPEGs are great. But again, when you are moving into print and production, you definitely want to make sure that you have the right pixels and the right DPIs. So for web images, they prefer 72 DPIs, and then for print images, they prefer 300 DPIs. And you do this portion in the beginning when you are setting up your artboard to make sure that your files are correct. And that also includes RGB and CMYK. RGB is for web and CMYK is for print. We'll talk about that a little later. So as far as GIFs, does anyone know, have you seen a GIF before? Raise your hand if you've seen a GIF. Okay, good. So a GIF is basically like an animated image. Or have you seen memes where it's like an automatic loop of a video? So GIFs are really great, but they are great for web usage. So keep that in mind, because when you are creating some of your graphics later on, you might want to incorporate a GIF. It's just best to know when to include a GIF and when to not include a GIF into your designs. So we're going to move on to PNG. Now, PNGs are lossless. When they are compressed, they take up less space and it will still look the same. PNGs are great for logos and icons, and a lot of people use PNGs with a transparent background. And other file types are very similar to PNGs, so we'll talk about that next. Another raster file format is TIFF, and this is used to compress and preserve image qualities. It is perfect for photo manipulation. So if you are a photographer, then you might want to take your photos in the TIFF file format before you export them out. A lot of people also use raw files, which we won't touch in this course, but raw files and TIFFs are really good for photographers. PSD. PSD is actually Photoshop. It's a Photoshop file format. It is created, edited, and also saved in Photoshop. It is used for photo manipulation. And you can also save your PSDs as a JPEG, a PNG, and a TIFF. Let me know if I am going too fast. I can slow down for you guys. So just let me know. And also I will still have this recording up for you so you can go back and reference to. So now that we discussed raster file formats, we're going to discuss the vector file formats. So vector file formats, the first one is AI. And this format is in Adobe Illustrator. So it's a vector-based artwork used for logos, typography, infographics, flyers, amongst others. Also, you have your INDD, which is InDesign or InDesign document. It is best for newspapers, magazines, flyers, brochures, and ebooks. Note. Okay. So next we have EPS. So EPS is best for high resolution prints of illustration. You will see EPS in Adobe Illustrator. You will also see CVG as a way to export your file. CVG is for browsers, faster load speeds, and also to improve your web SEO. You'll also use CVGs to support transparent backgrounds, just like PNGs. And then CVGs are also best for logos, icons, and other simple graphics. So I'm going to show you a quick video, something I pulled off of YouTube, but it was really good in showing the definition as an image between vector and raster. I know it's a lot of definitions that we kind of went over, but all of the definitions are also in your e-textbook.
Vector graphics and raster graphics are two basic types of digital images you see every day. Do you know the difference between the two? No? Okay, let's look closer. Look at these two cupcakes. The one on the left is a vector image, and the one on the right is a raster image. Let's see what happens when we zoom in. The vector cupcake looks clear and undistorted because it's made up of points, lines, curves, and basic shapes. These elements are calculated for every level of scale, so the image quality stays the same regardless of size. The raster cupcake is grainy and distorted because it's made up of a bunch of small units called pixels. Zooming in makes the pixels a lot more obvious. Vector images are generally less detailed because they're composed of basic elements. Vector image file sizes are relatively small because they contain just the mathematical instructions for creating the image, not the actual visual elements themselves. In a raster image, the more pixels there are, the greater the level of possible detail. But more pixels also results in larger file sizes. Designs such as logos and signage are typically vector images because large scaling is often necessary for printing. Images with a high level of realism and detail, such as photos and digital paintings, tend to be raster images. Finally, these are some common file types for each kind of image.
So do you guys think that you have a good understanding between the two, vector and the raster images? Can you drop a 1 in the chat for yes and a 2 for no? Okay, good. And if you do have any questions, please make sure to reach out to me, or you can stay after this session here and I will be able to answer all of your questions. I just want to gauge and see where everyone is and see how I can change up the lesson plan a little bit to make sure that everyone is getting the same understanding of the information. I know it's a lot of information we're going to cover, but hopefully we can take it in small sections and digest all the terminology together. So we're going to move on to the assignments, and we are still in week 1 overview. So the assignments are to read chapters 1 and chapter 6. Now in chapter 6, you're just going to read pages 111 through 126 of the Foundations of Digital Art and Design. You can find that textbook in Canvas. Also, after you read these chapters, you're going to have to do Learn-Its. And it's important for you to get started on your Learn-Its early. Learn-Its will take at least 2 to 3 days, sometimes 4. It's just the way that the system is set up. They want you to learn the information, and it's going to repeat itself. So each time they'll give you a little bit of information and then they'll quiz you, give you a little bit more information, they'll quiz you. So each time, the first time you might finish, it'll give you a 19%. The second time you finish, it might give you 30. The third time you finish, it might give you 100 or it might give you 78. Your goal is to reach 100, and you don't have to worry about getting the perfect score, because the overall goal for learners is just to make sure that you know the information. So as long as you reach that 100, anything that you submit during that time frame, there are no points deducted. It's just for you to know the information, learn the information, and retain it. Also, you have a Yellow Dig discussion that is posted now in the Yellow Dig assignments. So we're going to touch on that, which is you're going to do a dot exercise. You will have to read your chapter textbook, but I went ahead and I pulled the video so we can watch it together, because I feel as though we might help each other if you have any questions, and you'll have to just share in the Yellow Dig discussion what you learned from the exercise. And it's also, the exercise will be in Adobe Illustrator. So this is the video, and let me mute myself.
In the screen area of the composition. And so my artboard is filled with a pattern of black circles on a white background. Another way to achieve this effect would be to use the pattern brush. In order to use the brush, you need to have some kind of a brush stroke that you would apply the brush to. And since we made lines out of these dots, what I will do is use the line tool. So I'll pick up my line segment tool from the area of the toolbar that contains the ellipse tool, and I'll simply click and drag using the shift tool to keep the line straight. And then I'll notice that the stroke has no fill and no stroke assigned to it, so I'll just load black into its fill color so that I can see the line once I've made it. Because I want to fill the line with a pattern brush, I'll need to look at my brushes. So I'll open the window menu, and from there I'll open the brushes panel. And I'm going to take one of the circles from my results and add it to the brushes panel. Since my circles are grouped already in the results file, I'll use the direct selection tool. And it doesn't matter which circle because they're all the same. So I'll just pick one up and I'll drag it on into the brushes panel. In the new brush dialog, I'll choose pattern brush and I'll press OK. Since I have done this before, I know that I would like about 10% spacing for this to work out the way that I would like to see it in its results. But normally, you probably wouldn't know what percentage of spacing, and maybe there are some other attributes in here that you might want to change. You can always go back and make changes to the pattern brush options dialog. But since I already know, I'm going to press 10% for the spacing and click OK. This is what my brush will result. A little example there. So I'll take my line and now I'll click on my pattern brush. Now, that's a faster way to achieve those 10 dots kind of quickly. And you can see with your direct selection tool, if you pick up the end of the line and you make it a little bit wider, then your pattern brush will adjust, right? So you can see the dots kind of widen as well. So let's say I wanted to build this composition using my pattern brush. I would work in this manner. Now I'm going to kind of clear some space, and I'll just do this kind of side by side. And the same thing, again, it's a line. I know it looks like dots, but this is actually a line. So I'm going to copy 10 lines. Take one away. And with my series of lines, I will go ahead and select all of them by marqueing over them. I will take a look up here at my Align panel. I'll make sure that Align to Selection is the selected kind of method, and then I'll align them on the left side. They should already be aligned, but I'll distribute them, which is kind of the important one here because they're a little misdistributed. So now they're more even. Okay, so this would be another way to kind of make a field of dots. Now, Illustrator still understands this composition as a series of lines. So for the last part of the exercise where you have to remove some lines, notice I can't go in and select individual circles here. I can only select lines. So for that part, I would have to come back to my ellipse tool. And what I would do is I would fill the ellipse with white, and I would remove the stroke. And I'm dragging from the center. I'm holding Option and Shift while I drag from the center to make an ellipse that's just slightly bigger, the one there. So if I wanted to remove some of those, I would have to actually, I'm sort of cheating in a way. It's not really cheating because it produces the desired results, but basically I'm putting a white ellipse shape on top of some of the circles that are part of the line as a result of the pattern brush. As always, if you're done experimenting, it's a good idea to save your work.
Okay, so I would like to know some key takeaways from the video. Just something that you feel like you've learned, something that you think that you want to know more of. And again, this is going to be a part of your assignment that you're going to have to turn in for your Yellow Dig discussion. And in the week 1 module, you'll learn a little bit more. But could everyone go around the room and just kind of tell me something that you've learned or a key takeaway from this video? Who would like to go first? If I mentioned this to you guys before, but I started off in graphics as a self-taught graphic designer. Literally learned everything from Google and YouTube. Later on, I began to get into certifications, and certifications definitely propel you. They instead of searching for bits and pieces on the internet, you get everything all in one. So I really do like this program, this course. You'll learn a lot. But what I'm going to do is make sure that I find some additional information for you guys. So if you have any issues, let me know and I can find some resources for you so we can make this easier. I don't want to make it hard. And again, as a self-taught graphic designer, just playing around with the program, you'll learn so much. And then next thing you know, you will look and say, oh, this is easy. I've been doing this for a while. But this is something that, you know, in the beginning of your process, it was a struggle. And then now it's like, you know it like the back of your hand. Okay, so let's move on, but I did make sure to write that down so I can send more resources for that. So we're going to move into week 2 overview, which is diving into Adobe Illustrator. So I know you guys are probably like, good gracious, all these polls, but I just want to make sure that I am getting all the information that I can from you guys. So in the chat, can you write if you your experience in Adobe Illustrator? 1 being a beginner and 5, you consider yourself a pro. I think that's really good. That's a good place to start. And again, by the end of the 8-week course, I will reference back to every time I ask you guys, where do you see yourself or how do you rank yourself? Because I want to see you guys progress. And with us building everything out, each marketing material step by step and putting it all into a portfolio, you're going to see yourself go from I didn't know what this was to I use this all the time. So thank you so much for that. And we're going to continue to move on to the week 2 overview. So our objectives for week 2, the topic is going to be basically create an event logo. So we're going to create a vector artwork in Adobe Illustrator. We're going to look at the differences between vector, raster, and time-based graphics. Also, we're going to talk about sketching your illustrations and transferring them over. You'll also talk about tools such as the pen tool, shapes, color, pathfinder, text to create your illustration. And we're also going to utilize some design principles such as depth, space, and contrast. We're only going to touch on a few of these points because I don't want to confuse you or give you too much information too soon. But I do want to just briefly discuss week 2 because again, we will not have a live session. So I want to just give you some important information you can take with you into week 2 because by week 3, we will be focusing on Adobe Photoshop. So we discussed what raster file formats and vector file formats, but also time-based graphics as well. So time-based graphics are graphics that are not static. They're like a picture. They move over time. So an example would be a GIF or animated graphic that has a loop. It includes transitions, video, film, slides, audio, computer technologies that are referred to as time-based media. We'll get into that a little later, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood the definition because we'll start discussing GIFs and motion graphics later on in week 2. Also, so after this week, you will submit your selected event. And week 2, we're going to dive into creating some samples. So you'll create 3 different samples and you'll submit those samples in Yellow Dig. But before you do that, we're going to discuss sketching those illustrations and talking about the transfer technique. So in this assignment, you will do the following. You're going to research your logo design, select images, put together rough drafts in Adobe Illustrator, trace your designs on paper before we import those into Adobe Illustrator. We're going to trace all of your designs. This allows you to scale your sketch images and say, for instance, you were to pitch to your client, they are going to see, and I'm sure most of you guys have made logos before. I'm sure your clients, if you have done freelance, they want to see something. So they always want to know what's going on with the process. and this would be a part of the process. And this also helps you, so you are not automatically creating in Illustrator, which takes a little bit of time. It's going to take a lot of your time versus sketching them out, seeing what your clients like, and then using that information to go into the next step of the design process. Who in the class does freelance? Have you created any logos for clients, businesses? Okay. Freelance is a great way to build your portfolio. That's how I was able to build my portfolio before I really got into bigger companies, and they help. I will say that they do help. It helps your portfolio, your resume, and they see that you are constantly working and getting better at your craft. So practice, 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 and this class will definitely kind of get you into creating your portfolio and getting used to not only creating just a logo, but actually creating marketing materials. So we're going to talk about the logo research and rough draft. This is video 1 of video 2. Sorry, this is video 1 of 2 videos. This first video is going to be a little less than 10 minutes. And the second video, you will dive into yourself. And I'm not going to play everything because the video is on the Canvas under the modules for week 2. I just want to touch bases on what it looks like to research your logo design, as well as get started with creating rough drafts.
In this week's exercise, what we're wanting to do is we're actually going to be creating a logo. And where we want to start is with our research. I will be specifically working on creating a Halloween costume contest for my event. Once again, you'll want to choose whatever event is important to you. Again, whether that's a summer cruise, car sale, whatever you want to do, select something that you're passionate about. And where I'm going to start is just with a little bit of research to see what other people do with their Halloween logos. I see a lot of pumpkins. I see even a lot of kind of like the witch hat type things, pumpkins with witch hats. We've even got, this is kind of nice with the text, but it's really, really detailed. It might not serve well as a logo. We even see some pumpkins with witch hats. So not a whole lot to work with. This is actually a really nice logo, but again, super detailed. We've all kind of seen that Spirit logo before. So I think I'm going to kind of go down this pumpkin route. However, I want to make mine a little bit different. Maybe I want to throw in a little bit of a skull with that. So let's do some research. I'm actually going to pull up some jack-o'-lantern photos, and then I'll even pull up some skull photos just to see what we can work with as reference material. Now, super important here is to look for actual images, not illustrations that are already made or sketches that have already been done, because ultimately that would be taking someone else's work, and we don't want to do that. It's okay to take images because we'll ultimately be taking a different medium, but if you ever did need to use an image for actually just taking that image purposes, you will want to make sure that you go under the tools here and then go to you'll want to make sure that you go to images and then go to tools, and under the usage rights, change them to Creative Commons licenses. That way these are images that you are actually free to use. So let's see, I kind of want an anatomical skull. And I actually went through and I downloaded a few images beforehand, so I'm not going to scroll all the way through these. But this is a nice jack-o'-lantern here, so I'll save that image, and we'll use that. And then ultimately what I want to do is I want to pull these together in Illustrator and make a composite mood board. Now, you'll want to do a little bit more research than this, but for the sake of time in this video, I'm only going to do one. We'll definitely want to see 3 to 5 different options when you submit yours. So I'm just going to create a letter-sized artboard here that I can work with. We'll wait for that to load. And then quick note, if you want to rotate your artboard when you're in Illustrator, you can just go to the artboard tool, which is here, or hit, one second, you can hit Shift-O on the keyboard and that will do the exact same thing. Now, up here are your orientation tools. So right now we have it in portrait. I want it to be in landscape, so we can do that. Hit Escape to get out of there, or V to get to your selection tool. And then I'm going to pull in those images that I just saved. I saved them before we jumped on this video. So I've got them saved in here. Let's see. Got a nice skull there. So I'll pull those in. And the way that you pull them in, you don't have to import them. You just drop them into the Illustrator window here. And it should import those images. Now, as you can see, those images are super, super big. So I'm going to back out. You can either use Command minus or Command plus to zoom in, or if you hold Command spacebar on your keyboard, or if you're on a PC, that would be Control spacebar. You can actually zoom in by dragging your mouse to the left or right. Now, you can notice, I'll just separate these out here a little bit, that all of these images are different sizes. I want them to all be the same size, and the best size might actually be to go off of this pumpkin here. I downloaded 2 skulls because I kind of wanted to create.
So that is just a little bit. I know that if we watched the full video, we would run over on our time. So what I will do, we stopped at 5 minutes. I will, in the announcements for week 2, because it's too soon, in week 2, I will post this same video. That way you can start exactly where we left off, and you can kind of work with him while you're creating your logo. You can import all your files. And I would say do it side by side if you possibly can. Make your window for this video as small as possible. Or if you have 2 screens, you can do that. Use your phone as a separate screen. Going step by step with the video is definitely going to help you out and kind of put it all into perspective versus just reading the book, because I know that the textbook it's a lot of verbiage. It can be a little bit overwhelming, and the information is also in the book, but watching videos is just a little bit easier, I know, for myself. So, and as you said, we're visual learners, so video tutorials are always great. So I'm just going to move on, but that is something that we will continue to talk about in week 2 after you submit what type of event that you would like to do. In week 2, we'll get into doing some illustrations and also creating your logo in Adobe Illustrator. So your assignment for week 2, we're just gonna briefly discuss it. You're gonna research your logo, select your images, import your images into Illustrator, and create 3 different rough drafts, just like he was doing. Now he mentioned 5 designs. We're only gonna do 3. I think 5 is too much, but 3 is just enough where you can have something to choose from. And after you create your rough designs, you're going to print those designs on a sheet, and then you'll be able to watch the video, the second video, which you go in depth in regards to sketching and transferring those sketches back into Adobe Illustrator.